Skenie from the Paw, welcome to Australian Musician.
Cheers, mate. How are you?
Not too bad. You got a new album out called The High Price Deed. Been a while between drinks. When did you decide you're going to create a new album? And once you got the wheels rolling, how long did the process take?
About 4 years ago when we got Dan Cox joined the band, our new guitarist. It's a new guitarist. It's been 4 years. But yeah, for about the first year with him, he was just running in all the older songs and stuff like that. And I just said, we should start writing. And Dan came over to my place and he's like, what do you want me to do? You know, like, let's just, and I just said, mate, just play, just play, and I'll pick out the things, you know, like little bits and pieces. And that's how Payback's a Bish came out of that little session, because I had my guitar there too, and we were just jamming along together. And so that was after about a year in, and then like COVID hit us. And we did that back in Black, the 40th anniversary Back in Black thing, where we went out on tour and played the whole Back in Black album just as a tribute to Akadaka, you know, and then played some of our own songs. But yeah, then halfway through that tour, COVID hit and like we were all just banished. And that's when the writing started coming out. We kept on sneaking around to each other's places and just writing, and yeah, that's when it all began.
Yeah. So what's your songwriting guitar?
What's my songwriting guitar?
Yeah, what do you use when you?
I've got a Maton acoustic that I just play around on, but I've normally got the Kramer at home with me. Just cranking through a little pedal board and a little earpiece thing going on.
Yeah, it's a big sounding album. Big drums, big bass, big guitars. Who did the production on it?
We did it at Black Box Studios. Jeff Lovejoy is an old mate of ours. We'd been thinking about doing it with him for a long time. After Clarkey died, and we just went in there and plus we didn't really want a producer as such. We're pretty onto it when we know what we want, you know. And the songs just needed a little bit of a tweak here and there, and Jeff's really good at that too. And plus he's a mate, so it was a really cool vibe, you know, to get it happening.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite song on the album? One that's sort of most fun to play live?
Oh God, well, on the weekend we played a whole bunch of we played 9 songs off the album on Saturday night. And I mean, I love playing Cry Out because it's, you know, a big guitar song, you know. I'm playing the guitar all the way through that song, and Payback's a bitch, but Hurricane's killing it. This is the story. I love This Is the Story because it's just a ball terror, you know.
The whole album's quite relentless, actually, in its power. Is there anything you do in the studio between takes to look after your voice?
The first, because we did it in like we did about 6 songs in the first session, and we fully completed 4 of them, and then we went in and did the next 6, and I think I struggled a bit on the second time we went in, because I got a bit crook and it just lingered on, like the whole COVID thing just lingered on for ages, and that was a bit of a struggle. There was a few days there where I went, fuck, and I'm not singing today, and but but yeah, when we finally got it, and I warmed up and cranked into it. Yeah.
I see you placed the album's ballad, the only ballad, too long at the end. Had you run out of puff by then?
No, that one actually, me and Dan recorded. We didn't even do that at the studio. We just did that in our jam shed with Dan's got Pro Tools on his computer, and we just set up in there and just did it one evening. But it was that's like part one of a 2-part song that I had in my head, and we just ran out of time, so I went, I want to put the acoustic part on it.
Yeah, they're all kick-ass songs, and most of them could have opened the album. You went with "Payback's a Bitch."
Yeah.
Why did you go with that one? And is the track order important to you?
Yes, it is very important to us. Payback's a Bitch was a bit of a no-brainer for us, really, because it was the first song we wrote with Dan, and to me it's got a lot of the old elements of the Paw in it as well. It's not so much of a big jump into like what we're writing now. It was sort of like and it's the big start on it too. That's why we really wanted it for the first song.
Yeah. Why did you decide to call the album High Price Deed? Because there's no track named that.
No, that's actually a line that's in Love Shot, in one of the old songs, and yeah, I just mentioned it one night, or one of the boys mentioned it, and but before we were at Loggerheads, like with a name for the album, man, and it was nearly going to be called Number 4, and then some other band had Number 4, and I was like, we were like, oh, no, I don't want that, and there was a few other names that came up, and it's just nothing really stuck. But then when we said High Price Deed, everybody went, "Well, yeah, that sounds good,"
Yeah.
And we had a couple of imagery ideas that a mate had drawn up, and it sort of went with that as well. So yeah, that was a bit of a no-brainer then.
Yeah. Would you say there's an overall theme lyrically to the album, or is it more just a bunch of individual rock and tracks with their own stories?
I think there's a big theme with a lot of the songs about that whole lockdown period and our illustrious leaders, and all the bullshit that us, the citizens, take off them all the time. It's without being political, we just like to say how pissed off we are about the whole situation.
There are a lot of young kids that are going to hear this album and get inspired. What were the albums that you played the shit out of as a teenager?
Oh, definitely Back in Black. Motley Crue's Girls, Girls, Girls. White Snakes, 1987. Rose Tattoo, Scarred for Life. All the Angels albums. They were pretty much my first influences, the Angels, and then Akadaka and all that sort of stuff. What else? Yeah, as I was coming into the band, Cold Chisel. I was right into Cold Chisel. Yeah, most of the Aussie bands. In Excess too. Wow. Van Halen. Most definitely Van Halen. All the early stuff, all the new stuff too. I loved them. They were great.
Yeah. And so who was the first band that you saw live that really blew you away?
Well, first band I ever saw live was the Angels at the Geelong Civic Centre. I was only I think I was only 14 or 15, and my stepbrother knew one of the bouncers and snuck us in, and we were hanging around afterwards, and I met Doc Neeson that night. I was standing at the bar after the show, and they let us hang around. And when I met him that night, he he never remembered, but like that was a bit of an idol thing for me. I loved him.
You've toured the world with some of the biggest bands that you mentioned, AC/DC, Van Halen, Kiss. Some of them become your mates.
Yeah.
What do you learn from playing with the biggest bands in the world?
I don't know whether we've learned anything. I think we've always just done what we want to do. I mean, we toured for that many years just off our own back before we were even started writing our own music. Just as a cover band for about 5 or 6 years, and then when we were writing our own stuff and came to Sydney, we were just relentlessly touring then even more. And by the time we got on the road with the big bands, it was just more like, we weren't so much in awe of all them. We were just like, fucking, let's party, like, come on, let's go and have some fun. Just meeting them and talking and just having a good time, like not wanting to learn anything really. Yeah. Most of the time, they wanted to hear our stories.
Yeah. The classic Aussie rock bands are great because they can cut it live. Coming out of the pub rock scene, bands had a lot of chances to play back in the day. Did you find when you started playing overseas that a lot of bands didn't have that same power and energy of the Australian bands?
Most definitely. We'd play with some bands, and especially when we did like a festival. We did this festival in Buffalo, in New York, and Collective Soul were on it, and a Tea Party and stuff like that. When we came on, they all just went. Well, you could see them standing beside the stage going, "Oh shit!" The energy, Yeah, I think all the years of like Australian audiences like standing there just tapping their feet, going, "Entertain me," you learn how to entertain.
You would have stayed in some of the best hotels and also played some of the worst dive bars in your career. What are some of the worst conditions you ever played under?
Oh, I remember one night in Armidale, Western New South Wales. After the show, they gave us this room. They were all bunked up in there, and it was like freezing out. It was in middle of winter. It was like -3 degrees or something, and there was a sheet on each bed. Like we all just slept in it, and there was shit living in those beds for sure. So we all kept our clothes on, all freezing all night. I don't think any of us got any sleep.
What about the cushiest gig you ever played?
Cushiest gig. Oh. I'd say a lot of the big venue ones, like with that AC/DC and that, when we did Madison Square Gardens, when you're really getting looked after and you come into your band room and there's everything there, and caterings all day, and just looked after. That's the main thing. But there's been quite a lot of them, on those big tours, and you get used to it and having crew and everything, and then like now we're going straight back to basics, like we were doing our first gigs coming out of Darwin in Europe. So we're back to lugging our own gear and sleeping in the van and that sort of stuff.
Well, you know how to do it.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's going to be a bit of a shock to some of the boys.
So what's the plan for the rest of 2023?
Well, when we get back from Europe, I think there's only about a month off. I think we've got April off, and then May, June, July, we're touring. I'm doing a thing in July with James Morley and the Bond But Not Forgotten thing. I don't know whether you've heard of that, the AC/DC tribute thing. I'm going to be singing on that for him. And then, yeah, the rest of the year's being filled up now with dates for the album tour. And
Yeah.
when we get home.
What's the long-term plan for the Poor now? More albums, more tours?
Yeah, it's definitely we're back in the swing now, and it was a bit, we had Julian who left the band quite some time ago, and before that it was Rocky, before that, so there were, we're all sort of like disheartened about it, but then when we found Dan, it was like, right, we're back, here we go, he's 20, well, we're 20 years his senior, so it's brought so much life back in the band, and I mean, he's not about to stop, so we'll keep going for another 20 years.
Well, you've done pretty well with the new album, High Price Deed. It's a pretty powerful album, and it's been great to chat.
Cheers. Thanks a lot, buddy.